What is your least favorite race?
Least favorite rice?
Race. I asked that to all my guests.
Race?
No, yeah, I'm just joking.
Oh,
I'm just joking. You've never been to my house, you know, like, what am I getting into?
I honestly, I thought I was trying to think like long grain. I guess I've always preferred basmati, but
Bibbidi blue, scoop dee. Oh yeah.
I wasn't really starting the podcast yet. I was making a joke, like, what's an uncomfortable question to ask somebody that you don't know well, who's answering in a public forum?
I grew up loving comedy, stand-up comedy, and George Carlin was someone that I loved a lot. And back in the 70s, he talked about racism in general. And one of my favorite quotes of his, he said, "I don't understand racism. Like, why would anybody choose to hate a specific race wholesale when there's so many good reasons to hate people on an individual basis?" And I was like, oh, that's actually a very lucid observation. Like, yeah, anybody from any group can be an asshole. And you have to allow for that possibility. Instead of saying wholesale, a single asshole is representative of an entire group, allow for the possibility that people individually from any walk of life could be both awesome or be an asshole.
Not race-based, any group,
Yeah.
location, interests. Is there someone that if you had to pick, this group has been the biggest asshole around me? Could you qualify something like that?
Yeah, generally ignorant people tend to be assholes.
Dude, good answer. Dude, good answer. So I'm sitting down. This is your first time in my place.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a couple years now, but
It's true.
This is our first one-on-one.
It's hard to hang. I mean, you and I had one-on-ones when we were making David's movie, but it was more like sitting at lunch or hanging out in a trailer. It wasn't like coming to each other's apartments.
And also there were other people around, people coming in, and
Inevitably, yeah.
I don't know about you, but I was in character the entire time.
I definitely tried to stay really sharp because I knew what David wanted us to do was be able to improvise in character. And so I tried to stay lucid about who that character was.
This is the movie Futile and Stupid Gesture, biopic about the National Lampoon that was on Netflix.
I got to play Christopher Guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I would love to get, because they cut out of the movie, what was the singing section called?
The Lemmings.
The Lemmings, yeah. That was
They condensed a lot of it, and when you watch the whole movie, it's really easy to understand. Like, there's easily an hour of movie that is not as applicable to the story of Doug Kenny's life.
Yeah. That was the first day of shooting. You guys were there longer than I was, but that was the first day of shooting I was part of, and that set and that piece was so cool, and they ended up cutting a lot of it.
Yeah.
Where's Carlin on your list of favorite comedians?
Oh man, right up there. Like, he was definitely one of my favorites. Everything that he said was so clever and intellectual and provocative, but also so simple, so basic and human that anyone could relate to. And I really thought he was awesome. The other guy was Lenny Bruce because I understood contextually, thank you, where he was in the time that he was saying the things that he was saying, in a time where that level of freedom of speech was actually illegal, where you could be arrested or prosecuted for saying things that were incendiary or potentially disruptive to general social civility. And so I was fixated on that idea that you could be arrested for speaking in a time where I understood speech to be free. And then also watching an artist become so obsessed with being understood or misunderstood that he kept moving further and further away from actually performing, and was, just coming on stage with a rap sheet or coming on stage with accusations against himself or the newspaper. And it's just so original and provocative, I guess. Have you been watching
Marvelous Miss Maisel?
Yeah.
Dude, I auditioned for the Lenny Bruce role.
Oh, you did?
And that's when I read that script, and I was so excited to watch this. And it's one of my favorite. It's like I think it's one of my favorite shows ever.
It's
especially the first season.
It's an incredible show just from a sense of accomplishment. How specific and convincing everything is in it, but how stylized and
my gosh,
it's
the
beautiful.
clothes, the apartment, the whole
it's
vibe.
It's like legitimately beautiful. But I love the Lenny Bruce. The guy who's playing him is incredible. how they've serviced it. In the second season, when Rachel Brosnahan is watching him on what's like Steve Allen or something,
Right.
and he does that alone monologue, and I don't know about you, but that I had heard that, but I did not remember it at all, and seeing it performed that way and seeing it in the context of an artist looking at another artist and sort of realizing how lonely the path to your own artistic satisfaction can be, that really struck me. I just thought they've done such an incredible job.
I agree.
The writing and the directing, and what a fucking awesome show.
And similar to when we did the National Lampoon movie, I know pieces of a lot of those stories. I don't know the origins of them. I don't know the extent of it, and who knows what's real. I'm sure it's mostly
A lot of artistic
based
license
off,
taken.
But yeah, I didn't know much of it at all.
Yeah.
Before that, the only I used to do a joke. Take my wife, please.
Yeah, the Henny Youngman.
That's when I found out it was Henny Youngman, was when I watched that, because I always thought it was Lenny Bruce. So
Really?
just to let you know where it was like they're all like, I know all those bits.
Right.
I've watched a lot of those Carsons.
That time period was rich with comedians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I just not well enough educated. But I used to do a joke where I would do on stage, I would do Take My Wife, for example. And then I would go on with it. And I thought I was being funny.
Right, but nobody.
Everyone just said, you're doing the joke wrong. And it's not even your joke. I'm like, no, I know. But yeah, man. Small world, right?
It really is.
I never know when to use that saying.
What, small world?
Yeah, I just throw it out and people it seems to always work.
Disneyland is a surefire thing. If you're at Disneyland, you can be like, small world.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm busy at Disneyland though. I'm not doing bits with strangers at Disneyland. I'm getting corn dogs. I'm going on rides.
Yeah. Looking for that stuffed churro.
I don't know the stuffed churro.
Are you shitting me? So there are churros stuffed with
yes.
cream cheese or...
There's a chocolate one.
Yeah, it's really good, man. If you like sugary things like I do.
Yeah. But the corn dogs there are what I go for. I once tried to Postmate one. And
From
it didn't
Disney?
work. Have you had a Disneyland corn dog?
I have had a Disneyland corn dog. That's got to be outside of a Postmates range unless you're in Orange County, right?
OPR, they call it, outside Postmate range. Yeah, it was. Yeah. But I was with a friend. We were working a lot at the time, and we were pretty confident with, I'll do it. We'll do it for a bit. Put a little Insta story up there. Get an $80 corn dog.
Jesus Christ.
It went enough. We were able to type in the thing, but yeah, it said too far.
I have seen, or people I know have gotten like movie theater buckets of popcorn brought to their house, which just seems...
Dak Shepard?
Dax posted about that too.
Yeah.
It just seems excessive to me. I mean, I appreciate it. And it is, I think, important to do nice things for yourself, just to give yourself a little bit of gratitude for not falling apart on a daily basis.
Disneyland. I had one more thought of Disneyland.
I haven't done any reservations for the Star Wars land yet. I figure I'm just going to let it die down a bit.
Yes. So you're a huge Star Wars.
Well, I feel like I should qualify that. I grew up with the original trilogy, and then I had, 20 plus years before there was new Star Wars. So for me, all of my introductions to it were as a kid. And so they were points of key inspiration for me very young. It was introduction into that kind of sci-fi. It was exposure to a lived-in sci-fi world, and all of the characters that I met in Star Wars were... I was a child when I met them. So as I was older, Star Wars hadn't populated pop culture quite as deeply, especially 25 years later. And anyone who loved it, they loved it, but in a nostalgic way. And so pre the internet, I found other fans like myself, and we collected around all over. Like, I went to San Diego Comic-Con in 1994 when it just wasn't a thing like that. And you meet other nerds like yourself, but you feel fortified in your isolation. There's something that you are, as a small group, curating the memory of. And then I was equally excited when the prequels came out, and there was a massive cultural resurgence.
That's when I got into Star Wars. I mean, I'd seen them, but that's when I became a fan, buying the gold Yoda Pepsi cans.
Yeah. So and I felt like the fanaticism about the new movies was kind of influenced by a whole generation.
The new movies, the 4, 5, 6, or now?
Force Awakens and everything on it is like a second coming of this cultural zeitgeist. so many people that I knew who had grown up on Star Wars felt like they'd missed the opportunity to get rich by preserving all of their memorabilia and then trying to sell it later. So when the prequels came out, everyone was like, "Well, I won't get fooled twice," and they kept
I still have them all.
in the past. Well,
I still have them all sealed.
So all of that stuff is virtually worthless just because there's such a volume of it. And I won't say that tempered my interest in Star Wars, but it made it a little less precious.
Sure.
And then also I've been able to sort of step back intellectually and appreciate that Star Wars at each of these points has been a generational thing. And so every kid growing up in a particular time period has access to Star Wars that they can claim for themselves. And it instead of saying any kid born today or any kid born in the early 2000s needs to appreciate the original trilogy the same way that I do, I've since allowed intellectually for the idea that like my brother-in-law, who was 10 years old when episode 1 came out, can't relate to C-3PO. He loves Jar Jar. Like Jar Jar is his C-3PO. And same with BB-8. Like kids that see Force Awakens before they're 13 years old, their connection is to Rey, it's to Finn, it's to Kylo Ren. Like the specter of Darth Vader is just that. It's like us talking about Hitler. It's so far out of their purview that they don't have access to it. And so I appreciate that generationally Star Wars has continued to advance to the point that there's an access portal for anyone in the time period that they're growing up.
I would argue that Hitler is still the Darth Vader. I hear you. I get what you're saying.
No, but even just that, because post the Holocaust, there was like a 20-year period where everyone was like, we'll never do that again. And now here we are in 2019, and there is not only a rise of anti-Semitism, but a rise of white nationalism and a rise of like, people saying, that never happened. So that's a strange evolution.
Do you think that you introduced a significant audience to Star Wars through Robot Chicken?
It's funny that you say that, because when we made our Star Wars specials, I had parents coming up to me saying that they had showed their kids Robot Chicken Star Wars before they showed them actual Star Wars, which I felt had to be kind of deconstructive for any kid trying to understand those icons, because we were making such ironically self-aware observations about it that anyone who didn't know the subtext was going to be really confused about how to interpret those characters.
Yeah, because they're so personal to you and there's context built in from what you're deconstructing. Remove all of that. If someone watches Spaceballs for the first time, which I saw Spaceballs before Star Wars.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, was that disorienting when you actually saw Star Wars?
No, because, well, I was told that I watched Star Wars right after. I was told this is making fun of this stuff. So now I can't wait to see what it is.
Right.
Also, it holds. Bring only what you need to survive is still, you know the joke I'm talking about in Spaceballs, is still something that is. I'm not a huge Star Wars guy. I'm not a huge Spaceballs guy. I've never seen a big suitcase where I didn't think to myself, bring only what you need to survive. And whenever I see Yoda, I think of Mel Brooks.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the only reversal that exists. And when did you do your special?
2008 maybe?
Was it that long ago? I remember
the first one. Yeah, we've done 3 of them.
How does that work? Is it because
how did we get to do it?
No, more so you do a Star Wars special on Robot Chicken, and obviously it works.
It did, yeah. Well, first we had to get all the permissions, and we had like the full support of Lucasfilm, and
which I saw. I didn't mean to bury the lead, and I want to get into your movie Changeland.
Yeah,
but I saw that Lucasfilms did the audio on that.
I got to do our mix at Sky Sound. Yeah,
that's your connect.
I pulled all my favorites.
Cool.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. I'm
it's
sorry.
Technologically the greatest facilities on the planet.
Sure,
and some of the best technicians possible, and man. It's like that. It's like that thing that Eric Stoltz says in Pulp Fiction. It's like you see where that money went right away. Like you know exactly why it costs more to get to do the work there, because it's incredible the work that they could do, the ideas that they had, the technology they had, and then the artist's ability to both separate sound and innovate and make your movie experience.
Will you explain differently? Separate the sound and innovate.
So when you make a movie, there are all different channels of sound. Well, you got to watch it. So there's scenes where our characters are
Real
walking.
quick, pardon to interrupt. So Seth has a movie coming out June 7th
Yeah.
that he wrote, directed, and starred in.
Yeah.
Changeland.
Yeah.
Almost all in Thailand. Watched it.
Yeah.
Watched it last night. It's beautiful. Did you see stuff that you hadn't experienced by doing this? Because you've been working and you've done voices for every
Yeah.
awesome show in the world.
I've never mixed anything quite to this degree. This is the first long form narrative live action that I've gotten to be this inside of. And so the process was just more expanded. I was familiar with all of these things from having mixed like hundreds of hours of television. But doing it this way was different for me. And with my editor, we had done some very basic mixing to try and like get a song to fade into something else, to try and get a sound effect to be married to dialogue. And we just didn't have the technology or the skill set to do it. And then when we got to Sky Sound, they're like, oh, yeah, here. And then you're like, oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. I can actually hear the birds.
And your connection to them, you were telling me getting the rights was 2007-ish.
Well, roughly, and it wasn't like full rights. It was just sort of a non-paid license allowance. So they basically gave us the ability to use character names and likeness without having to pay a massive fee on it.
Which is different than paying a massive fee. Because why?
Well, so say, for example, you want to make a movie and you want one of your characters to be wearing a Boba Fett shirt. You either need to get permission from Lucasfilm to display that likeness, or you need to pay them some kind of license fee to allow you to wear
Do you think
that
it's
shirt.
okay that on this podcast I'm wearing the turtles?
Yes, since this is not a for-profit thing, and also it's essentially categorized under documentary, you get to just wear stuff.
Fuck yeah.
It's a gray area. That's what I've learned the most from 13 years of making Robot Chicken. Is I'm really well versed in what is or is not categorizable under free speech.
I was under the impression that when you're with comedy, you could get away with anything under parody law.
There is, but you actually have to prove parody, which is
Right.
it's not a gray area. It's actually a hyper specific area, and what it means is that you need to. There has to be enough underlying material that the public at large understands what the real thing is that
Right.
you're making fun of, and then your parody of it needs to be transformative in nature, taking something that you know for a fact about the intellectual property and demonstrating how this could be, albeit a comedic one, a natural extrapolation of that original concept.
All right, so I'm going to go a little out of order here.
All right.
Because I did not know this. I looked before you got here that you were a voice on the new Turtles.
I got to do 3 seasons of the Turtles. I played Leonardo.
Yeah. So I was texting you last night about potentially bringing a Magic the Gathering deck to play.
I know, and I'm sorry, I ran out the door.
All
I got
good.
distracted on the way out.
But I talked about just because I know you have so many cool interests, and I was talking about bringing some stuff, and I said to you, you said, "Is this like a collectible nerd culture themed podcast?"
Yeah.
And I said, "No, I just am a huge Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan." That was before. It was 5 minutes later is when I saw that you were one of the turtles.
That's so fun.
And I've never done, I guess I haven't at this point, but I have very, very limited experience with everything, but animation in particular. I've done one voice. I did Mike Tyson's Murder Mysteries, which comes out soon.
Oh, my friend Hugh Davidson, that's his show.
Yeah, they're buddies of mine too. I was on the Nobodies with them.
Oh, awesome.
And they wrote a guy. His name's Glassman. They drew him to look like me, and I'm excited to hear Tyson saying my name. I'm super excited to see it.
Did you get to work with Tyson?
He wasn't there on the day,
Because he's in Vegas.
but so the reason I bring that up is one of my earlier auditions. It was I got to, I don't know if it's still called a test. Is it still testing for?
Yeah.
I tested for Leonardo. I was so excited, and Rob Paulson ended up getting it, which I think is super funny to think. I thought I was so close, and now the original Leonardo, and I think he did Raph as well, is doing it.
Yeah.
And
he's pretty special.
yeah. That was my life. Those I remember even all the tapes from the Burger King. Do you remember when the Burger King would give for the animated series?
No.
Burger King, maybe I'm just hyper aware of a 2-week period, but to me, Burger King for my childhood and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were synonymous. And you'd go there and every time you get tapes, and I still have them. I have probably 20 tapes of the same episodes.
Audio tapes?
No, VHS tapes of all the
Wow.
cartoons.
It does evolve, man. The one that we got to make was beautiful. They did because Ciro Neely, the guy who essentially directed the style and he was the main showrunner on it. His love for Turtles is so expansive, from the comics to the movies to the original cartoons, that he integrated all of that into our series. And so if you watch the last series, the one that I got to be a part of, they do things that are so loving of the brand to introduce a new generation to all the stuff the way that we saw and felt it.
You've done everything cool.
Oh, thanks.
And Family Guy obviously is I don't know about obviously, but for me, it's one of my favorite shows.
Oh, me too.
And now having so much experience at such a high level of doing not just voices, but writing, producing, and being part of this entire process, is being a voice actor versus acting and stuff. Pros and cons.
Well, the pros are that it doesn't matter what you look like. It just matters what you can make yourself sound like.
Do you mean that, like, as far as what you actually physically look like, or having to do wardrobe and makeup?
Me as a physical actor, there's only so many things that the audience will believe me as, no matter how good an actor I am. There's just certain things that physically that, that's the benefit of putting something on film, is that you use all of the subtext that comes with your performer to tell your story. But with voiceover, it's more limitless, because I've got a vocal range with some dexterity. And so I'm able to make myself sound like all different kinds of things, stuff that you would never physically believe me as. So as an actor, it is liberating and makes me feel endlessly creative to be able to play something that you couldn't physically believe me as. It's almost the same as I got to do a motion capture movie. And I played a 10-year-old in it, which is not something that I could ever do.
What's that movie?
It's a movie called Mars Needs Moms.
So, and you're playing a 10-year-old.
Right. And if you watch something like Pen 15, there's a great version of adult women playing children.
That show is something special, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. So for me, a big part of that was the nostalgia of the 90s, which... Is that your 80s? Is that something that you weren't a child for that, were you?
I was in my late teens and very early 20s. And so I didn't, because I love pop culture, I was well aware of everything that was happening. Whether it's the Nickelodeon afternoon or any of the game shows or weird toy and music pop, like all that stuff was very current for me, just because those are my areas of interest. So I almost got to be both an 80s and a 90s kid at the same time, except that, I had my driver's license and I was interested in like dating girls and stuff. Yeah. So I was old enough to go to rock concerts by myself, or old enough to go to see punk bands and stuff. So I kind of got to live in both worlds. But pop has always been something that fascinates me. No matter what age I am.
Yeah, you could tell in the stuff that you do. You said that when you're animated, you could be things that you can't be.
Yeah.
Does that inspire some choices that when you're writing, like, I want to make myself be something that you can't be, or is that just whatever the narrative for what you're doing is? Do you ever put yourself in something you wish you could be?
There have been times, especially on Robot Chicken, where we'll write something and I say, oh, I want to do that.
Because it's something that
I feel inclined towards, or something that I feel like I've got a good take on. But I have a very difficult, like even Changeland, I didn't set out to say, oh, I want to play this kind of character. It was more that I had an idea for a story I wanted to tell, and I was like, oh, well, I guess naturally I'll play this guy.
And you finished that script probably 3 years ago?
I started writing that script in the end of 2009. I went on a vacation with a buddy of mine to Thailand. And
just one friend?
Yeah. And everything that... Because Thailand is most of the places that we were going were typically for honeymooning couples or romantic interactions. The fact that my male friend and I were on this trip made everyone treat us like a couple. And so everyone wanted us to, all of the restaurants, all of the hotels, everybody was like, oh, free couples massage. They were like, here's a romantic candlelit dinner.
That's what their skill is.
That's what they cater to. And so my buddy and I were just like, fuck it. Let's just pretend that we're
So that's what your movie is a guy who's going through a hard time in his relationship, ending up taking a trip that he was going to go on with his wife, an anniversary, and he's there with a buddy, and they're treating him just like that. So that was the inspiration.
Yeah, everything that we do in the movie, the boat trips, the hotels, the restaurants, the James Bond Island, that's all stuff that anybody can actually go and do, and it's all stuff that my friend and I did on a real trip together. And as it was happening, the people that we were meeting, the places we were going, the experiences that we were having, it really just felt cinematic to me. And I thought, what an incredible place to set a story in. And so I started trying to conceive of a story that would organically put two friends in these places to be able to experience what my friend and I were experiencing, even though we didn't have any of the dramatic circumstances that are in the movie.
You were dating Claire at the time, yes?
Claire and I had just started dating each other when I left to go to Thailand.
So you're in a positive relationship space. Yeah. What made you want to? Is that just what you felt was the best story? What made you want it to be a struggling relationship?
Well, when I was conceiving of what the thing would be, taking pictures and like making notes of the fun stuff that happened to us, I thought that the movie would be like Sideways or like Garden State, some kind of coming of age story at a specific age, and I didn't think it would be that interesting for an audience to just watch a drama-less vacation between an actor on a hiatus and my buddy's a show producer, a talk show producer, and so I just didn't think that would be that interesting. I don't necessarily love movies about the industry, deconstructive or supportive, either way. And so I wanted to tell something that felt more accessibly human. And I thought, what's more relatable than life crisis? And when I started writing it, I thought, what do you actually want to say here? And I wanted to talk about some things that I'd had experience with or conclusions that I'd come to about how to live. And so to that end, I wanted to show a character in a particular crisis, like stuck in a particular line of thinking, and then have him meet several other characters who had all worked out some way to happiness through completely different means. And if only to demonstrate that there are several different paths to happiness, and that while we all share the same goals, no one's got the same path. And whatever your path is just that. It's your path and your life to live. And sort of make the point that it's never too late to start over, and that you can't live anyone else's life. No matter what someone else has done to success, your path is only going to be yours.
There were two lines in that movie that were very, very powerful to me. One was on the boat tour, Macaulay Culkin, when he moved to Thailand.
Yeah.
And you said, "Don't you miss life?" And he said, "How do you miss life when you're so busy living it?"
Yeah.
I thought that was, that got me. Beautiful.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
And then connected, probably intentionally, but was when there was a moment where you were having a really nice time and something was offered to you, and you were a bit confused as, why is this happening to me? And then the mysterious man that we just meet said, "Why not you?"
Yeah.
And there's a saying that I have to make myself think sometimes. It's difficult for me to leave my house, literally.
Yeah.
And as a microcosm of just adapting to new things, it's just I build a safety for myself, and it's not only easy to live in it, it's difficult to live outside of it.
Yeah.
And the saying of there's a million reasons not to do something, why to do something. And what you said is that line in the movie is the inverse of that, but with the same logic. And that is something that one of my friends, David, Sullivan.
Yeah.
He lives a life that is kind of like Yes Man, the Jim Carrey movie. Is that called Yes Man? Where the concept is there's a Tony Robbins-esque character who says, if you want to have a better life, say yes to everything.
Right.
In comedic form, he now has to say yes to the hitchhiker, and then giving the man, all the money in his wallet to the homeless man.
I remember that. I never saw that movie though.
David kind of lives that. Like a friend of ours, Tal Welkenfield, check out our album. It's great. Just came out. It's 1 a.m. and she had just sent everything off. She had just finished her cover album. It was the first time she's done with something that she's been working on for 7 years. And it's 1 a.m. and she wants to do something. And so I'm going to Mel's Diner because we all live around here.
Yeah.
And it's 1 a.m. Sullivan's friends with us. And he lives right by there, and I gave him a call, and he answers the phone. I woke him up, and I said, "Hey, Tal, finish the thing where you can go to Mel's." He's like, "I guess I got to put some pants on," And it's a combination of being a supportive friend, but also he loves to live and do things.
Yeah.
And I kind of have a WWDSD, like a what would David Sullivan do mentality sometimes, with this idea of why not do something, why not me? So that was a nice moment, and kind of it seems like taking place in Thailand and having that theme is this Buddhist culture that is that location. So is there something to it being Thailand and this why not me? When you were there, did you experience
the
living life different?
Well, a lot of the philosophies that are given to Brandon, my character, are philosophies I've come to understand and apply personally. And so
Will you tell me some of those?
Well, just that general idea of like everybody wants the same thing, and so there's really no reason to judge people as a whole. You deny yourself the opportunity to love and be loved.
Yeah, you said everyone wants what did you say? Everyone wants love, to be understood,
to feel safe
and safety,
to feel love and to be understood. That's things that are the human condition. Anywhere, no matter what culture is overlaid on top of your human condition, every human being wants those same basic things. And that's something that's always struck me. So I wanted to present that idea. But to answer your question, yes, Thailand is critical to the movie. It was fundamentally inspirational to this idea, because it is a place that is a million miles away from the average person's normal experience. And that gives you space to reflect, space to be still, space to feel both connected and insignificant in the grand scheme at the same time.
You said you were there. You saw how cinematic it was.
Yeah.
The movie is beautiful. I mean,
Thanks,
congratulations both to you, the DP, and also the location.
Yeah, Patrick Ruth, who shot the movie, his eye collected beauty the same way that I felt that mine does. And so I knew, basically I called him. I'm like, are you down for this? Because it's going to be half of a movie shooting on boats and water. It's going to be extreme conditions. We don't have a lot of money to make it. So it's going to be a challenge. And in spite of all that, we're still going to have to capture this place as it feels. Can you help me? And he could.
How long were you guys there?
I was there for about 3 months. We shot for 24 days.
That seems quick.
It was fast. It's about 4 weeks of physical photography. But I had 5 weeks of prep, which was fantastic.
Some of the locations were integral into the story that took place there, from as small as do not jump off these cliffs to having a location where you're fighting in a boxing ring with natives.
That all happened, man. We my buddy and I went on like a 48-hour tour of islands. We went on a speedboat, into kayaks, into atolls, out to all these remote places. We found ourselves on a tiny little beach in the middle of nothing, where there was a bar with a guy with a big afro, and just
I saw, and he's smiling, looking forward the entire time. I thought that he stood out to me, that guy.
Yeah, that guy has such a beautiful smile. I was like, yeah, just smile, and that was the interpretation.
He took it very literally.
But even to us meeting a snorkel dive, a dive captain called Ian, who was like, you're coming out with me tonight. There is a 4-mile island in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and there is a bar with a Muay Thai ring in the middle of it, and I'm gonna fucking win tonight. Like, we experienced that, and I was like, this is a movie. Somehow there's a story in here of like, I don't know, just reconnection to self.
There was a significant amount of the movie took place there. Yeah. The fighting was, weaved in and out of it, but you see that when you're finding location, and then you just add that to the script.
That was it. I was in each of these places, and I was like, this is a plot point. I don't know what it means yet, but I'm gonna shoot here. And I was really pleased, because years later, after I'd actually written the script and got the financing, I was pleased to discover not only do all these places still exist, but they're all still called the same thing. And so I made deals with each of those people.
Oh, the places you shot were where you were 10 years previous?
Yeah.
Oh, that's romantic.
Yeah, down to when Breck and I are walking through that one cave, where we get off the kayaks, we walk all the way through. No, before that. When we get up. No, before that, there's one moment where we stop with the kayaks, and I say, so what was that about what was that you said about your show? Because it felt like you're harboring some you're harboring some like secret grudge against me. That exact cave that we walked through and then we arrive at a lagoon in the center of these rock formations is the exact same cave, this same sea cave that my friend Dan and I visited in 2009.
How do you find that?
By accident. Our location supervisor who played Klahan in the movie, Mac's boat partner, that guy was our location supervisor. About 3 weeks into our scout, I'm like, do you want to just play this character? Because I'm not going to find anybody that looks like you, and this is exactly what I want this character to be. He brought us to a series of sea caves to try and be this sea cave. And when I was in it, we were in this one cave, and the shape of it, the ability to walk through it, this like low point when the tides are at different levels, some of it's completely covered. And then when the tide is low enough, these areas are revealed. I took a photo in it and I went and compared it to a picture I took in 2009. It's the same fucking cave. So it's almost like throwing a dart into the middle of the ocean and accidentally hitting the same place. But each of the places that we go to in the movie are places that my friend Dan and I went in 2009. And are also places that a viewer could go to, and they're all called the same thing. They're not as close they're not as close together as they feel in the movie, but anyone could go on our trip.
Has Dan seen this movie?
Yeah.
Did he know beforehand the locations, or did he see them?
Yeah, the whole time that I was writing the movie, or the whole time that we were on the vacation, I'm like, Dan, this is a movie. I'm just going to write this down. I'm going to take a picture. I'm essentially location scouting at the time.
So this is your first time directing, yeah?
Yeah. Well, directing a long form narrative feature. I've gotten to make some live action shorts, and I've directed like hours and hours of animated TV.
But yeah, long form, not only long form, it's live action. Not only live action, you're the star of it.
Yeah. I like to think it's an ensemble.
But it's you and Brecken.
A legit two-hander.
Yeah, it's a two-hander.
Yeah.
And it follows your story.
Yeah.
But more specifically, let me say you're in most of the movie.
Yeah.
What made you want to take on that?
I didn't really want to. It's more a matter of circumstance. Like I knew I wanted to tell this story, and I knew that no one else, I wasn't going to be able to translate this to another director. And then just a matter of keeping our bottom line as small as possible. I knew the more that I did, the less we'd have to pay me. Right. So instead of having to pay other people to try and understand or interpret this vision, I thought my shorthand, all of my relationships, like, for example, I wrote that part for Brecken. I wrote that part for Claire, for Brenda Song, for Mac. Like, I wrote these parts because I knew an actor who was not only incredibly professional, but an insightful performer who would help me realize the purpose of this character on film. And so I stacked the deck in my favor in every
Is that what you mean
direction.
by shorthand? Because you have these relationships with these people and you know what they offer?
Yeah. So I could say to Brecken, hey, you're coming in here and we're just going to look at each other. And then I know Brecken well enough that he'll give me everything he's fucking got and we'll be measured at the same level. So it's a lot. There were no new relationships to really establish, except for with Kedar and Rose, who played the newlywed couple. Even Randy Orton was somebody I met in 2009 and had.
He was great.
Isn't he great?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Randy's going to be the biggest revelation to people because no one knows him like that. And his presence is so, I needed that character to be huge, but also grounded. You needed to be able to feel the gravity of him in the simplest of moments.
The size comparison of the two of you together is great.
So here's what I did. I always had him on a box. And I always had him.
Oh, really? Just to make him bigger? Because it looked like a different species next to you.
And then I also had him closer to camera than me by almost a foot, maybe 2 foot in every time. So you just get a little bit of forced perspective. And he looks massive.
There's a moment where his
he's a big dude. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you made him bigger.
Yeah,
I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the introduction to him and specifically to you to the audience was aggressive as a bit. And
I ape a Back to the Future moment. Like I homage Zemeckis in that moment where you're over Randy's shoulder and my eyes just sort of peek above his shoulder.
What shot in Back to the Future?
There's the moment when Marty McFly meets Biff for the first time, and they do it in 1 and 2, and there's probably even a version of it in 3 now that I think about it. But they're in that diner, and he squares off with Biff, and he stands up to him, and then Biff gets into frame, and you just see Michael J. Fox's eyes like peek over his shoulder.
I remember that one from 2. BBB for Bork.
Yeah.
man, I mean, most people maybe not, but not everybody's going to notice that that's a shot that it was inspired from Back to the Future. But it's so cool to be making something, and it doesn't have to be contextualized to other people, but just to pull from all these things that you've seen, and then you get to make it yourself from a location that you've been in.
Yeah, it's pretty self-indulgent if you think about it. Like, I basically corralled a bunch of friends to relive a vacation that I took and then film it and give it to people as a movie. But I had such a cool experience with one of my real best friends, and it's exactly the type of movie that I wanted to share.
If he were an actor, would you want it to be him?
Oh yeah, if he was a performer, I would have cast him in it. If I had gone on that trip with Brecken, then he would have been cast in the movie. But there's also some fun to my close friend Brecken playing my close friend Dan.
Do they know each other?
They do, yeah.
Did he try to do any Dan, or was it just an unrelated character?
The character that I wrote is not really Dan, except that Dan can get along with anybody. Dan is a really wonderful and beautiful person. He is rich with life.
Yeah, Brecken was pretty charming in that movie.
Yeah, Brecken's great, man. I love him in the movie.
To the writing, not the writing. I mean, yes, writing, but to the directing, acting part of it. How hard is it's? I mean, especially if you've never directed something at that level before. How hard is it to know your space?
Well, the upside is I've spent my entire life making movies.
Yeah.
Literally my entire life from the time I was a kid. And I've been lucky enough to work with both incredibly competent people and also to witness a lot of people's first failures. I've worked with a lot of first-time directors. And I've spent a lot of time with producers. I've gotten to see the entire process of movie making from inception to release over and over and over again. And I've gotten to at least intellectually understand the pitfalls that people succumb to, and how people can be hoisted by their own petard or their own arrogance or their own general misassessment of what are going to be the obstacles. And so I felt more prepared for it than your average first-time director. The thing that I had never done before, which was the most challenging, was acting in the role while I'm responsible for all of these other things. And I had sort of took for granted the amount of work that I do as an actor in between cut and action. So
you're saying lack of work between cut and action.
As a performer, when my sole responsibility is performing,
right? There's nothing.
When
else.
The director calls cut and you get your bit of, you get whatever your information is before they call action. I do a lot of work to prepare myself to absorb the note. Just getting a sense of self in the space, and I shortcut that while making this movie because
for your performance,
for my performance, and I don't believe it's anything that anybody would notice, but you feel certain ways. It's like singing; you can tell when your note is here versus here, and the audience may not understand it or even recognize it, but as an actor, that was the largest challenge that I had. I'd done a ton of preparation, so I felt like I knew the character really well. But in the moments where I would call cut, and then I would give everyone their direction, and then I'm mindful of us keeping our days, and so we would roll right away, and then I would, I'd have my AD call action, and then I would do the scene. I notice that was my largest challenge.
How could that be improved upon?
I was well surrounded by supportive people who were going to help me not fail. But if I have it to do over again, I'll just it's subtle. There's just little things that I would take for myself as a performer that I didn't necessarily take the time for.
You were great.
Thanks, man.
You were great in it.
Oh, thanks.
You said the pitfalls, you watched a lot of people's first failures and pitfalls of directors. Yeah. Could you give some examples?
It's the director's job to give everyone the confidence that they have a certainty of vision. Everybody that makes movies or works as an artist, they really just want to know the direction that they're aiming for, right? And so it's an incredibly insecure place to be as a performer. It's already scary and vulnerable. And so I know that. And I was well focused on the things that are most important. I've seen a lot of directors get to editorial and not have covered themselves either with establishing shots or basic coverage or at least alternative versions of stuff. Because I had always heard you make 3 movies. There's the movie that you write, because a reader needs to be able to feel what you want from the words, and what you put into words is fundamentally different than what you need to put on film. So there's the movie that you shoot, which is what happens under the circumstances, how much you can bob and weave with things, and how things that differ from your original vision but can still support the overall idea, like being flexible enough to let an actor have an idea and also recognize whether it's an innovation or a hindrance, and being able to then relate that to the actor. Because I've been the actor that says to a director, hey, I got an idea and I want to come in here. Maybe I'll put my hand up here. And I've had a director go, oh yeah, that's great. Let's do that. Or a director say, you know why that's not going to work? Because you need to be here by the end of it. So I love where you're coming from, but in this moment, I need you to do this instead. And so I was able to...
Both those examples seem a little still collaborative. He still said no while saying good idea.
Yes. So that's a critical thing. Like, I've had directors just shut me down and say, no, do it this way, which is, offensive. And also,
even for as long as you've been doing it, you still, as a human, want to be spoken to a certain way.
Yes. And there is a reality to being a performer where you just want your director's approval. And so even to the degree of ending a take and saying, that was great, we got it. Or I love what you did, and I want you to just give me a little bit more here. Being able to, with very little words, make my actors feel comfortable, make them steel correct, and then also give them the space to innovate. These are all things that I've learned just through experience.
I was listening to Steve Merchant on Dax's podcast.
Yes, I just listened to that too, and he made that exact same point about just saying, "Hey, mate, good job."
He said, I forgot. He said I forgot to do it.
Yeah,
and then I remembered. Oh, right, you need to let people know that I'm good enough. And
yeah, everybody needs just even the little. Where did I see it? One of my friends got to make a movie with Ridley Scott and Jeff Bridges, and Jeff Bridges made he takes photographs all throughout his shoots, and then
you do that.
I love taking pictures too, but Jeff will publish a book for the cast and the crew, and
for the YouTube
really
version, I want to say that just if you're listening to this, check them out. I'm going to put up some of these pictures here. When Seth and I did Futile and Stupid Gesture, you took also, I don't know, you just had some cool filters and apps or whatever, but it's still in my all the pictures I have from the movie, all the ones I took, I don't have them in my favorite. Your pictures you sent me in my favorites when I look back at it. The coolest pictures, and you got stuff. You were just walking around set in costume, not talking for a lot of it, and just like going behind people and taking these really candid, nice action moments.
I love taking pictures, but the thing that Bridges said, because he had a photograph, they're all on boats in water, really complicated photography, and there's a picture, a wide shot of like all the kids in the water and Ridley Scott going like this, and the text says thumbs up from Ridley meant so much. And I remember in that moment, because I was still a teenager when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, just the most basic of reassurance from your director, even if it's just, it means the world to you, so that you don't drive home and think, oh, fuck, I should have done this. I should have done this. I could have done this. Like you feel the wherewithal to be able, you feel the space to like let it go. Trust your director has a point of view and that you've helped achieve it.
Is there an equilibrium between that and this idea of acceptance of self and giving the best you could have given, and how validation from other people? I have found that as a stand-up comedian, I did a weekend, and both shows Friday night were unbelievable. And this was one of my first weekends headlining. And I just had a great dopamine rush after. I was up, I was making notes. I just felt really, really good. Yeah. And then Saturday, the second show in particular, was bad. It wasn't just not that, it was bad. And I felt...
Was it you? Was it the audience? Was it...
Me, probably.
Who knows? Yeah.
Fuck them. It was them. Ignorant fucks. They don't understand when I say, take my wife, for example, why don't you blow me? No, it was probably me. But the point is, I felt not great. And I checked in with myself, and I hated that feeling so much. And I was confused because yesterday I'm a guy. I'm a guy. I figured it out. I figured out stand-up. And that was unsustainable. Mm-hmm. And then, so I wrote this down. It's still the first page of whenever I have a ton of notebooks. Whenever I start a new notebook, I write this on the first page. killing and bombing have the same thing in common. They last for 20. The feeling lasts for 24 hours at most.
Yeah.
So, point being, when I feel bad about something, whether it's somebody not giving me the thumbs up, specifically the thumbs down, which unfortunately happens all the time. I still don't know how to do stand up. I'm getting good.
Yeah.
Haven't figured it out.
It's like meditation. You're always practicing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the inverse feeling is still not going to last me. So, but with the director, it's not just about wanting somebody's approval. It's also about they are the vision and know if ultimately I'm doing a good job in this.
Right.
So what happened if my audience doesn't connect with me? I could recognize, oh, I forgot this one thing, or they thought I was being serious. They didn't realize I was joking. Whatever it is, it was a miscommunication that I could fix the next time on stage. You can't do that with a movie.
Well, to a degree, like you might not necessarily be able to do it in the same experience, but because I had so much experience both as a performer and as a director, I got a lot of certainty about what I needed to be in those moments. Like making Robot Chicken for as long as I have, I realized, 15 years ago, how much at some point everybody just needs someone to say, you know what, guys, we're doing this. And be responsible for that decision. When you have a bunch of people who are all telling you, like, oh, I need to know, am I doing it this way or am I doing it this way? Sometimes you just need to pick a direction for everyone to aim at.
Yeah.
And then you live and die by that decision. But at some point, everyone is looking to someone to say, this is why we're doing it this way, and to be confident enough to give them the confidence to do their best job. And so I was really conscious of that. I asked a lot of people who've done it more times than me or better than me.
Cool.
Hey, what did you learn?
Could you tell me any specific things that somebody said?
Yeah, when I first brought the movie back and had like an hour 47 cut, and I knew that I was going to cut at least 30 minutes out of the movie, I sent it to different directors or writers or producers that I'd worked with, and I said, if you have any time over the next 2 weeks, I'm trying to file this down from about 30 minutes. What do you see? And everybody came back with really incredible notes. And I knew I was going to shave stuff out, but all of that information, even just talking it through with other directors, it helped me feel more confident. It helped me feel a little less precious. Because when you're writing something, you think, oh, this line of dialogue, this is the thing. This is the whole point I'm trying to make. Mm-hmm. And then the thing I got over and over again was, it's okay to cut that line. It's okay to cut that line because your actors are already saying it for you. And so if you've done your job as a director through your music, through your angle, through your performances, you don't even need those words because the audience will feel it.
Yeah, man, you've been doing it for so long. It's so cool that as a first-time director, you have so much experience with directors.
Yeah, but even still, I learned like everything that everybody told me would happen happened. You know what I'm saying? That was the thing. So early on, I had always heard that you make 3 movies. There's the movie that you write, the movie that you shoot, and the movie that you edit. And inevitably, you just hope that the film that you edit is the same intent of the movie that you wrote, even though to get you across each of these hurdles, you need different things. So when you're writing the movie and people are reading it in text, you need to do certain things in the stage direction, in the descriptions, in the dialogue, so that whoever is reading it gets the point. And then when you're there and you're shooting, shit just happens. Like I'll give you an example. In the original version of the script, Mac's character does not win his fight. He is more of a cartoony character that is hilarious in the ring. And the purpose of that character was that he got knocked down over and over and over again and kept getting up. And while we were shooting it, probably because we were all just there and we had shot some of Mac's earlier scenes, I was like, thematically, this doesn't work if Mac loses his fight. You have to both see the triumph of this character. You have to understand that maybe getting in the ring isn't so dangerous, so that you appreciate that Brandon is sort of wooed in there under false pretenses. And also because thematically, you want to understand that this character who had made a choice to leave everything familiar to himself and make a new life for himself, that his advice was sound. And so there's not even a script that reflects that. I came to Mac like the day before we were supposed to shoot the fight scene. I grabbed the fight choreographer and I was like, it's a different thing. It's a different thing. Like, we need him to win the fight.
When I first met you, I guess so we became friends through a game night.
Yeah.
So not only were we around a lot of people, we're also kind of in character. We're playing Mafia.
Yeah, and that's a strange social circumstance to meet each other under. But I knew enough people in that group. You know, a mutual friend of ours hosted a regular game night, and everyone came and played this game, Mafia, which is essentially a performance game. It's great for actors because you get to deeply set yourself in a character and then convince each other of it. But the best thing about a game of Mafia is no matter how like your heart races when you have to lie to each other the same way it does when you step on stage. But at the end of it all, no matter how well you've deceived or convinced one another, at the end of it, you're all like, we were just kidding. This is the real me, and you all hug each other. So there was an incredibly supportive thing that came out of that whole game night.
So I have an interesting relationship with social games like that. Like you said, it's a performance-based. To me, it's also very tactical in a way that doesn't need to take priority because for most people, it's a game. I have been kicked out of a lot of things in my life.
You have?
A lot of things.
How come?
I mean, it's starting back from school. It's just having to go and being in learning disabled classes and getting in trouble and having to go to a special. I went to the school called PEP, Positive Education Program. It was for like, at PEP, there were 3 teachers. There was the teacher, the assistant teacher, and then the class restrainer. Ours was Gomez, for when kids jump out of windows and say "fuck you" or whatever, and then they hold you on the ground until you stop like swearing and yelling or whatever.
Wow.
It was. I mean, now it was awesome. Like looking back, like what a weird, interesting place I was at. But I was terrified in that.
It sounds challenging.
I want to give a brief version without getting too much into it. I lacked a lot of awareness as a kid, and didn't pick up on
misreading social cues,
not even recognizing they existed. It wasn't like I think this, I know this. Oh no, I'm joking. You know, I'm joking. It still is hard for me emotionally to recognize that people aren't thinking what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Logically, I get it. I have developed new tools around it, but basically, people don't speak directly. What I realized late in life was, people will not tell you things, they'll show it to you. And whether it's yawning and checking your watch because you're tired and you want to leave, or it's rolling your eyes or going, okay, yeah. But you're not saying, Rick, I don't like this.
Right.
The biggest version of this in my kind of inciting incident to self-discovery happened a few years ago in a basketball game I was in with my first television job was a show called Undateable. It was an NBC show, and my boss was in the executive producer is Bill Lawrence.
And this is where the 6th lead came from.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out to the 6th lead. I'll have to get you a t-shirt.
I'm still waiting for my hoodie, man.
The guy that makes them is out. I might have one in my closet. I'll see, but it'll be a large.
That's not going to fit me.
You could sleep in it.
Maybe. But if you have a t-shirt, I'll take that too.
So I'm in this basketball game for years before Undateable exists. 3 years during the run. After all these people in this game are my friends, people that wrote on the show. I know these guys. I got an email from Bill that I almost want to read on this, but it was a beautiful email, but also very direct. That's what made it beautiful. Hey, Rick, this is a tough email to send, but basically, a lot of the guys that have been in this game for 20 plus years don't like playing when you're there. Some of them don't come when you're playing. Gave a list of reasons, some of which I understood, some of which I still disagree with. But the through line between it all was I had no idea these people even felt this way about me.
Yeah.
The big line in it that struck that conflicted with my logical and emotional side that just didn't balance was, you're one of the best players here and the last one picked. Why do you think that is? I actually wrote this short where I responded that he says, you're the best player, one of the best players here and the last one picked. And I say, I'm the best player here. Just like really not getting what he's trying to say. But in it, it's like, I still don't believe him. And I'm back in this game. I was only out for like a month or two. I'm not. I'm the best. I'm an excellent basketball player. And to me, that's where my value comes from, being a good basketball player. That was where I first got my confidence, where I first had friends. People picked me. They wanted me to play. Play as tough and as hard as you can. That way people will keep wanting me around. That's kind of this narrative that's been built inside of me. So now I'm playing with 45-year-old comedy writers that just want to get away from their kids for a minute, and I'm running into them and looking down at them after scoring and saying, oops. You know, it's like, Jesus Christ, Rick, relax. But no one's saying that. They're just checking their watch and yawning. Meanwhile, I think I'm a god at this place.
Right.
So then they tell me that. So that's a microcosm of a lot of other things. But basically, and Dax Shepard, who I brought up a couple times, I love his podcast.
Yeah.
My relationship with Dax began. I was Jackie Tone, who was also
sure.
in Futile,
Yeah.
and I dated for a while. And Jackie and Kristen are very good friends, and I would go to their house, and I was a guest there. And the first time I met Dax, we played a game similar to Mafia, Wolves and Sheep, I think it's called. Do you know what that game is?
It's probably the same context, just with
Yeah.
different icons.
So basically, everybody at the beginning of the game is given a role, and nobody knows what that role is except for us. And you're supposed to play. You're supposed to pretend you're not the bad guy.
Right.
And in that game, I told Jackie because you have to have your head down for part of it, and Jackie came up, and I told her I told everybody else I'm good. Jackie's not. And Dax, who is very alpha, says, "How do you know that?" And I told him very confidently, I know you're not supposed to look up. I wasn't. My head was down, but I did see something looking down at her feet, her hands, or whatever. I made something up that I saw Jackie do something. And Jackie's like, "What are you talking about?" No, I didn't. I said, and I just played it very tactically as opposed to having a good time, according to them. So long story short, medium, they ended up voting her out, and it wasn't her. She was a good person.
Right.
And she's legitimately mad at me.
Yeah.
And this is the game, baby. What do you want me to tell you, sweetheart? I'll see you in 20 minutes. Go get a glass of water. I'm thinking like when it's over, you shake hands. That's what the game is.
It's how it's supposed to be.
So I would argue that I'm still right, but I've recognized when I have a different opinion of everybody else, I have to at least check in with that.
Yeah.
Dax is now angry with me and saying, "But you can't do this because you're lying about this." And I, whom a guest at his home, I just met him and am representing Jackie. It's basically I'm gambling with somebody else's money. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm just now going hard at him. Like I'm supposed to make you believe this. Yeah? I'm supposed to make you believe something? Did you believe it? Then why are we and I'm just and in my head, I'm playing basketball, I'm bodying each other up, and this is what you do. And when you're done, you shake hands. The game's over, and I'm still thinking to myself, yeah, I made it, this was fun. I won. I did a good job.
Yeah.
Kristen came into the kitchen and apologized to me on behalf of Dax because of how he got a little heated.
Yeah.
She was being very sweet. Basically, Jackie talked to me after, and I didn't realize this, and Dax even told me later, he thought I was something that definitely my intention wasn't, and I'm not, which is just this guy who's just this aggressive. I just get very competitive because the goal is to win, and I recognize very narrowly, this is my goal. Like you said, the tone as a director is to get the certain shot, but there's between the lines, you also have to tell people, good job, so you could get that thing out of them. Right. You're not just filming a movie. So when I get kicked out of this basketball game, that was when it highlighted a pattern of a lot of things in my life from childhood to that moment that were unrelated. 2 weeks before that, I got kicked out of a poker game with my friends because I was being too aggressive. I still hold that if you are that thing, if you're on that frequency of liking to talk shit and being competitive and just like trying to one-up each other, it's a fun place to live. If you're not that, then inherently you're also not a person who's going to be confrontational and say, this isn't for me. You're going to pretend it is. I think I'm killing.
Right.
And they don't even want me there.
And no one's informing you of that.
And that combined with my, at the time, I'm better at it, but my intuition for how I'm being received, I was missing it.
It's hard too, because I feel like in the last 10 years, just culturally in America especially, there's been less of a general comprehension of irony. And I don't know if it's an intellectual failing, but people have gotten sincere to a level that they almost don't appreciate that there could be an ironic interpretation of what they're saying. And so what I always took you as was like working bits. And so I think the reason that you and I got along was I was not intimidated by the appearance of aggression because I've known so many comedians who are workshopping a character to one degree or another. And I never felt that any of the even implied threatening behavior was actually threatening. I just thought that we were playing. And so
my eyes are getting watery right now. But go on, please.
Well, that's all I mean. It's like, but that's not everybody, and that's probably almost a shortcoming on my part that I presume similarly to what you said, that everyone is interpreting the information at the same speed and frequency that I'm offering it. And so I always presume that everyone, which was something I had to learn young, that not everybody feels the same way.
Yeah.
And not everybody interprets everything the same way.
Not everybody questions as often.
Yeah. And so you need to be more sensitive in your ability to interpret so that you don't accidentally create a confrontation with someone who's not attempting it.
I don't remember if I've talked about this on a podcast or not yet. This is a new tool that I've developed. But when I go out on a date with somebody new or have a new friendship, and I have felt that whether or not we're on the same frequency, not as much as that you understand and appreciate, it seems many frequencies, at least mine. So I felt safe and I never debriefed with you. But I'll say on a date, especially if we're getting high, I say, listen, sometimes I could lack self-awareness. And if there's ever a moment in this date where you're feeling that I'm being too weird, or there's any sense of unsafety that you have with the jokes that I'm making, I beg you, give me the benefit of the doubt one time. Just say, hey, Rick, knock it off. Yeah. And then if it happens again, just leave. Don't even say goodbye. But what I found was that not only does that make them, allow them the safety to be confrontational if they're not, rather not feel it's confrontational, but offering information. It also, I've noticed accidentally, it lets people know, oh, he is doing, the things he's doing on purpose. Whether or not I think they're funny is up to interpretation. Yeah. But he's meaning to do this. And with that comes a trust in me that it's a choice on what you're saying, on being ironic or at least playing to some type of situation, as opposed to, oh, whatever the example might be.
An intent behind it, but it's not malicious. It's not destructive or demeaning of whoever you're with. That wherever you're coming from is a good place, and you genuinely think what you're saying will be received well.
Yeah.
So
specifically, I'm looking for laughs. I need them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But this conversation came up, I'm remembering now, because when I first met you, you are so nice. And I've described you as this way before, to where it wasn't that I didn't trust it. I definitely didn't understand it. Because for someone to both, like you said, recognize I'm doing bits and doing the bits back, and you were doing the bits back, especially at first, where it was almost like you were pitching a bit to me and not performing it in a way that's super professional and cool, where you're like, yes-anding me, you get what it is, and you're offering ideas to it. Meanwhile, I'm, hey, your penis, or just being the most annoying in the world.
It didn't sound anything like that.
No, I know. I think I was just, trying to bring myself down so I could look like, humble. Yeah. But yeah, the bits I was doing are probably, I kill at those games. I'm hilarious.
Well, especially the first time, because we had been working together for a week, and then you came to that Mafia game.
Didn't we meet at Mafia before?
I thought it was vice versa.
You're right.
Because I got to see you I felt like we met at the table read maybe, which was so fucking exciting. Not just to be a part of that project, because I was so heavily influenced by National Lampoon, but I'd never gotten to work with David. We're in a room full of like the best comedic minds of the day. Just to be included in that call sheet was
so cool.
Was fucking awesome. And so I felt like you and I bonded over just being there and being excited to be there. And I do remember that first night, because you see everybody's style and gameplay, and you were so aggressive in it that people were like, is this guy for real? And I felt like, because we had already met, I'm like, oh man, Rick has a wild game style. Let's see how this works. And in my head, I'm like, oh, so is he Mafia? Or is he a townsperson? And he's just trying to throw people off the scent? And it was almost more confusing that I knew you beforehand, because had I just met you then and seen your gameplay, I might have had a stronger intuition about which side of it you were trying to play. But I definitely recognized that within your game style, and I saw you even process it, that some people weren't receiving it well. And I remember you got voted out fucking fast. Like, you came out hard against somebody right away.
In a game night, when I'm acting a certain way, when the game's over, there's 5 minutes and then you're back into a game. So when people are acting a certain way toward me, I don't
know
the intention.
All I can tell you is that I have played games of Mafia with several people, Claire included, where their gameplay against a particular person will either be received as brilliant strategy or like personally offensive.
And the latter is is crazy. When I'm playing we're playing basketball.
I know, but it is you just have to allow for the frequency at which other people interpret information.
Yeah.
And you never know what circumstance precedes. Kristen said something just talking about being in traffic that I thought was so profound. She had found herself in the habit of being really reactionary to bad traffic. So if somebody cut her off or did something else, and she had to get outside of herself and consider that she had no idea what the other person was going through.
Right.
Perhaps their dog had just died, or perhaps they're on their way to the hospital, or perhaps they'd just been broken up with, or they were, getting fired, or whatever it is. You have no idea what the context of the situation is that you're suddenly confronted with. And so I really try to apply that to my regular life.
There's a David Foster Wallace speech that he gave at some graduation. Are you familiar with his work at all? I'll send it to you later. That was my my into that point of view.
Yeah.
And he gives a lot of specific examples about. It's gorgeous.
Well, so to that end, like if you're playing Mafia with somebody, you have no idea what precedes them arriving at that
Yes.
at that place. And so if you are particularly aggressive in your tactic,
Their shields might be down.
yeah, and that may that just may pluck at somebody's vanity or insecurity in ways that you can't even interpret. And so, like I saw Claire and other people go at somebody really hard, and then when the game is over and everybody is like, "I'm just kidding, I love you, we're all just having fun." Some people are so rocked by that experience. They may just not have experience with role play like to that degree to be able to reveal the true themselves after the game is over.
I'm loosely calibrated to where if you were to come in hot and I couldn't handle it or didn't want it, I would say to you right away, "I'm having a day. Do me a favor. Relax."
That's incredibly mature. Like I've been in relationships before, and especially this one where you do the service to your partner to say, "You know what, I'm irritable right now, and it's not you, but everything that you're saying is pushing buttons, and it's not your fault. That's my fault. Just I need you to be aware so that I'm not reacting in a way that's offensive."
I think the culture is this non-confrontational, but more specifically at the root is not being direct, and the reason is not being aware of why you feel the way you feel. And I accidentally, because I speak so directly and assumed that people would do the same. So if they're not telling me, it means it doesn't exist.
Right.
I accidentally was very much hypersensitive to the way I felt and was wanting to communicate it in a way that I loved what you said in your movie about, especially the being understood, which is my safety.
Yeah.
And that, anyway, I'm talking about this for way too long. I want to get back to.
Are we? This is probably, I hope
I don't know.
very informative to whoever is listening to this or watching it.
That's another thing that when I notice I've been talking for a minute or more, I get a little self-conscious, sure, but more specifically, I'm learning like, oh, am I doing it again? You know?
I tend to unintentionally dominate. I'll, in an effort to express myself, sometimes I won't take the time to listen. And so that is something that I have spent my entire life trying to be better at.
All right, well, shut the fuck up for a second then. So you are so nice. And when I met you at game night, you... it wasn't until maybe the third time. I mean, I guess it's just a rule of patterns, but by the third time, and it was so consistent. Oh my God, you're just nice. It's nice in an aggressive way almost, because you're almost. You know what? You're nice is showing me how not nice I am. You're nice. Here's what it is. You're nice is saying I'm well after the first person said I'm good, which is almost like, are you correcting me? When how you doing? I'm good. How are you? I'm well. Oh, that's a better answer.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I didn't mean it in any competitive way. I probably just wanted to use different vocabulary.
Well, you never said well. I'm using that as an analogy. I'm saying like if I say, "Hey man, how you doing?" and you go, "I'm good, man. How you doing?" It's like, "Oh, you're welling me right now. You're eating an apple while I'm eating pizza."
Some of that is the fake it till you make it principle. Like I've struggled with all different kinds of depression throughout my life, and I find the only thing that really gets me out is reminding myself that it's entirely up to me from the inside out to project something positive. Like your state of mind is conditioned by how you can allow yourself to feel, and so making an effort when somebody says, "How you doing?" to not be like, "I'm fucking under it. Like the world is falling apart and I woke up today like crying." And how do you wake up just crying? And being able to say, things are good. Because objectively, every moment is what you make it. Like,
it's more specific than I'm good, because I'm not even mean the how you doing thing, which I could go on about an hour about that platitude. But I'm saying you actually give good. You're not I'm good. You're when you hug. Hugging is when you walked in, I hugged you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against hugging.
I like hugging. I feel like it is reassuring and validating,
and it feels
comforting.
genuine with you.
Well, because I give people hugs.
Yeah.
You know, even strangers, when strangers are like, I want a hug. I saw that whole thing about the guru that had like hundreds of people and she just gave them hugs. Yeah. How much as human beings we get tribal and we're deprived of our most basic desire, which is to interact and connect with one another. And so hugging is a like shields down acknowledgement of our mutual humanity. And it can be as simple as just what you didn't get from your folks or what you never got throughout your life. A
hug is deeper than that. That to me, there's more layers to that to me, because I find hugging a lot of times to be confusing, because when you say goodbye to a group when you're at game night and we're saying goodbye, you give the guys a dap and a pound and you say, you know, and then the girls, oh my God, and you hug them goodbye. I don't know 90% of these girls' names. I don't need to be hugging them goodbye. But when a group of people hug the girls goodbye, now I'm supposed to do it. So if I don't do it, it's weird.
You might presume something that no one else is presuming. I find with those kinds of social things, it all comes down to intent. And that's I think what this current movement of trying to inform either men or women about how what they're offering can be interpreted in a different way. So when I hug people, it's not with intent to create a sexual situation. I'm not trying to like sneak a feel or anything like that. I'm simply, in a really honest and vulnerable way, just saying, hey man, you're safe and you make me feel safe.
That's what I'm saying. When you hug me, it feels different than a lot of, because the amount that we've interacted with each other, the hug is very connected.
Yeah.
Whereas as for other people that I know better than you, I don't need the hug.
Well, listen, man, I've been recognized every day for over 20 years.
Oh, sure.
And so
you have to sell that too.
Well, not even sell it. It's just that can be a condition that makes you feel very unsafe. You know, like when you walk into
you feel unsafe, not the person meeting you.
I can feel very unsafe. Like when I walk into there's a general paranoia that arrives from literally being recognized every day that people are looking at you. Same as walking into a classroom as a kid and feeling like everyone's looking at you and talking about you. And so people can make me feel threatened just by their attention. And part of the way that I combat that is to find ways to make myself feel safe, either by taking a little bit of control over the situation or setting the tone for the interaction. And also, I don't want to live my life completely guarded or walled up. I don't feel like that is the healthiest way for me to live, nor do I feel that's a positive example for anyone that meets me. And so I really do try, not in a dangerous way, but in an honest way, to be accessible even for just that moment. Because I have found moments of real human connection to both be validating and inspiring. And so I try to create those opportunities without putting myself in danger any chance I can get.
So my introduction to you was the same as everybody else in the world, which was as Mini-Me. Not as Mini-Me, but as the not Mini-Me in Austin Powers.
Oh, yeah.
But that was a character.
Yeah.
There's the guy from Austin Powers was, of course, Entourage.
Sure.
So I meet you on Entourage.
Well, and even harder in Entourage, because Entourage was kind of a mockumentary.
Before you give your point of view,
Sure.
I want to explain mine, because yours is the real one. And we talked about this the third time we met was when I realized how nice you were, and something was confusing to me.
Right.
So not that I thought you wouldn't be. It was just overly nice versus my introduction to you before, which. So in Entourage, for those of you who haven't seen it, wake the fuck up for a second, okay? And then you are in there as yourself.
Yeah.
Now, I'm aware that you're playing yourself. It's scripted.
Sure.
What I wasn't aware of was how much people don't do that, which we'll get into a second. That's when I want to hear your perspective. But so your character in it is is exactly what you would think a kid actor who's still working would be. You're in Vegas, you meet E, you see E, and you're like, hey, you say, hey, tell Sloan I say what up.
Right.
Which still, my best friend John DeWalt and I, his wife Alice, they just had a kid. It's constant, tell Allison I say what up. It's always that. We always do that joke.
Yeah, I implied that I had a pre-existing relationship with his current girlfriend to get under his skin.
And you did it like a douchey actor who said, let's tell her. It was, no, I'm not fucking her. I'm just saying, like, you don't know. You know, that type of energy.
Right.
And you're such a prick.
Hey, yo, E! Hey, did you tell Sloan I said what up?
And it's so one-dimensional, actor, funny, love it. But also, it's when someone's able to do that, it's got to be in them. I mean, you do characters, so it doesn't mean it's who you are. It means that you're able to pick up on that thing.
Yeah.
But I see that, and it's just you are the one-dimensional multicam actor asshole, and it's so funny.
Oh, thanks.
So now I meet you, and you're, yeah, man, I'm well. Yeah, come here. I'm so excited we're doing this movie together.
Right.
And I'm like, well, didn't you want to tell me you fucked my girlfriend? You know, I was looking for those types of bits. And as we talked about it, you explained, which now I want you to, how much people think that's who you are.
Well, I take it as a compliment that I was convincing in the performance, but I also realize how confusing it is to play a character of your same name and then trade on the real life things that people know about you, but give a sort of skewed interpretation. I watched all of Larry Sanders, and so I saw lots of famous people deconstructing their accepted social profile in some kind of outrageous character performance.
And you
so,
recognize that that's what they're doing.
Yes, and it was also it predates reality television, so the audience itself is not predisposed to believe that what they're watching is true.
Oh, good.
So I found
Interesting.
I found that because Entourage came after things like The Hills or The Real World, which had made its own celebrities out of real people, even though those were heavily edited and heavily produced segments, which kind of crafted characters out of not even the most linear storyline. I only perceived after people started interpreting me this way that it was a product of the former, that because reality television had sunk so well in, that kids who were raised in that environment, growing up watching Paris Hilton or The Simple Life or whatever the things were that predated it, they don't necessarily recognize the concept of irony. And so I had just made an Italian Job with Mark Wahlberg when he created that show. And he was like, come do something on the show. We're getting all these famous people to cameo themselves.
Connect.
Yeah, so, and then Kevin Connolly and I grew up together, the kid who plays Z. Like, we did commercials together when we were 7 years old. I've literally known him my entire career. And we like each other, like have mutual respect and like affection for one another. So the idea of playing frenemies, I thought was very, very funny. And the first bit that we did was just a little bit on the roof of the Standard downtown. And we wrote it as we went. Doug Ellen, who co-created and wrote the show, he saw how well Kevin and I liked each other and that we were willing to go really dark with our jousting. And so he was like, I got this story.
Like you guys are these nemesis.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and from my perspective, if I'm really crafting this character, then I thought it was funnier to be the most caricatured version of the Hollywood stereotype. So every time you see me in the show, I'm wearing sunglasses.
Yeah.
Every time you see me, I'm on my phone.
You got people around
and like
you.
barely. I've got an entire gang of people. Everything I say is dismissive and obnoxious.
You're always looking down too when the other person's talking.
But like weirdly intellectual. And so I thought this is a very funny opportunity to play a straight villain. And Doug was like, I've got this pitch for an idea in Vegas and maybe we can start seeding it here if you're interested in doing it. Would you ever want to play like the most awful version of yourself? And I'm like, that'd be funny. And I presumed that the audience was savvy enough to get that it was a parody. But what was interesting is because I had been at the time more focused on producing than on acting, I wasn't doing a lot of on-camera interviews. And so there wasn't anything to combat that interpretation. And so an entire generation of kids met me through Entourage. And I found that skewed their ability to even perceive me realistically. And because they'd been weaned on reality television, they sort of assumed that Entourage was a glimpse into, that was their access to Hollywood.
People in the industry also thought so, you said.
A little bit. I had a weird thing happen where casting people who were under 25, who just had never had me come in or didn't know me, were so convinced by Entourage that it like turned their stomach against bringing me in for other kinds of characters. I found my portrayal was so convincing that it really made people think that I was a dick, which is kind of a compliment at the same time that in my interest in being understood was hurtful. But you know, it's been years since, and now luckily, I still every once in a while get somebody on Twitter who was like, "Man, I grew up fucking hating you because of what you did to E," and I'm like, "Hey, thanks."
That's just wild. That's what I was talking about, like in playing Mafia. Like, come on, man, I'm doing a bit,
but
right
I got to
now.
imagine it's the same with, like, I saw somebody like Aaron Eckhart, who I first saw in a Neil LaBute movie called In the Company of Men, where he played one of the most despicably horrible, intentionally cruel characters. And it is hard to fucking watch him in it because he's so good in it. And that handicapped him for years. It was years before he could do something like Aaron Brockovich. And even in that movie, played like a shitty guy with a heart of gold. You know, but the path from In the Company of Men to playing the White Knight Harvey Dent in the Chris Nolan Batman was like 15 years of him electively not doing parts like In the Company of Men so that people could see him in more sympathetic
Do you
roles.
think people, actors starting out, should consider what their breakout role would be? Or is it so hard to get a breakout role that you just have to,
Yeah,
like,
you
not
just
even
never-
know it's breakout, but I'm saying like playing a significant lead part in something.
I don't think you can. You got to, as a performer, trust your gut and give your most heartfelt performance, regardless of what you're doing. Like if you look at somebody like Edward Norton, whose first big movie was Primal Fear, everyone sort of gave him the benefit of the doubt that that was a performance, that it was an incredible performance because he played both this, you know, meek and damaged victim at the same time that he played the out and out aggressor in the same film, and people were so impressed by that it gave him a catapult into being a character actor, where I really think it was me playing my name that, like, if I had played a character in Entourage, I think it would have been more effectively received as a performance.
Do you, you said you get, for 20 years now, you're going to be recognized.
It might be more. It was around 98.
What was that, Austin Powers?
Austin Powers came out on DVD. I was made a series regular on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Can't Hardly Wait came out. So in the same year, I did a ton of press, and I found that generationally people knew my name in a way that they never had before.
Do you like that ever?
You know, it's got its perks. It's got its downsides.
I was with Sullivan last night. We picked up some Cantors. After your screening,
Yeah.
I told my buddy's birthday party, and we met at my aunt's for dessert, and I hadn't eaten yet. So we picked up Cantors, and somebody in Cantors recognized Sullivan from his Netflix show Flaked.
Oh yeah.
And he said, "Hey man, you were from Flaked, right?" And David lit up as if they gave us the pastrami for free. And he said, "Yeah, man." And he's like, "Yeah, I love that show." He goes, "Oh, that's so cool. I never get recognized. Thank you so much." And he wanted it in a way, like it's you know, Ridley Scott giving a thumbs up.
Yeah.
At what level do you go past at what level is it, you know, obtrusive? And I don't know if there's a specific answer, but did you have it where you liked it and then didn't, or was it right away too much?
No. The very first time, like, there was a point where we had a real fan base for Buffy, and it was the very first time where I was sort of appreciated amongst my own peer group. And to that extent, that felt like the greatest compliment ever. And then within a year, it felt very intense to that same effect where I'd arrive at an airport and I literally felt everyone looking at me. And so you stop feeling a person and you more feel like a zoo exhibit. What I noticed was because I'd spent, 20 years prior to that acting, doing character roles and never being recognized, nobody knowing my name except within the industry, that to all of a sudden have people know you, I felt an obligation to every single person that came up to me to make that moment significant and to give them some honoring of the time they'd taken to notice me. And I had to almost to the detriment of my actual relationships. Like if I was with a friend and we were having dinner and somebody approached our table inappropriately to spend a lot of time with me at the table, I I neglected to put up those boundaries that would be respectful of my actual friends or my family or a relationship that I was in. Like I was in the Bahamas at one point with MTV for a spring break, and I had a girlfriend with me, and we were like on a dark beach with a bunch of people having a kiss, having an intimate moment, and somebody literally separated us to like make sure it was me and like take a picture, and I had not quite gained the confidence to be like, hey man, I appreciate what you're saying, but this is a personal moment that you're interrupting. So let's just say hi, and then let's go about our business. It took me years to cultivate that kind of confidence and that kind of certainty to both be able to give someone just a moment, because most people just need a moment. They just need to be acknowledged. And I've seen that moment turn where someone's like, hey man, I fucking loved you in that movie, bro. And you're like, I appreciate that, but you're very drunk and you're being a little aggressive. Hey, fuck you, bro. I never liked you. I'll fucking kill you. Like how fast that can turn somebody's passionate love for you into a passionate hate. And it comes with them feeling misunderstood, not being recognized. Like, I came over here to compliment you, you ungrateful piece of shit. Like how quick that can turn, but also how quickly you can give someone the most sincere of acknowledgement that still doesn't neglect your friend or still doesn't completely intrude on your own life. There is a balance that I've discovered, and I constantly strive to hit it. I don't always achieve it, but in my best moments, I'm able to both give someone just that moment of connection so they feel validated in having connected with something that I did, and also not making it something that I feel so obligated to that I am creating an unnatural circumstance that harms me.
I've been around people that I've seen who take every picture asked of them in a public place, and it's the entire evening.
The invent of the cell phone camera made it a little bit easier. It both made it a little more paranoid because people will try to film you without your knowledge, and that can be terrifying.
Do you watch Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee?
I have, yeah.
I forgot who it was with. I think it was it was with it doesn't matter, Rick, but get it out because Zach Galifianakis. Did you see that?
Right.
One?
And Jerry is like,
yeah,
who fucking cares?
Zach's like, aren't you paranoid about people taking? He's like, I never assume anonymity when I walk out of the house. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
But it's not just the logic of that, it's the acceptance of him not caring is so him and so cool. Yeah. But also, do you have that space of like, you've accepted people are going to film me, I'm not going to worry about it?
I definitely recognize that there's certain circumstance that I walk into where it is more plausible that someone would miss the social cue of my discomfort and just want to. We're also in a culture now where there is a commodity. You know what I mean? There's like a near financial exchange for people with their connection to celebrity. That whole pictures or it didn't happen thing fundamentally changed society's interaction with celebrity. And then all of the social media and being able to increase your own value by your proximity to celebrity, that's all recent. And so I'm lucky enough to have been recognized for a long enough time that I could get my footing in it before the invent of the cell phone camera, before social media. So I was able to sort of bob and weave in a way that I think younger celebrities coming up now don't have the same opportunity. But because everyone's got a camera on their cell phone, I'll take lead, and not in an arrogant way. But my radar is such, my spidey sense is such that I see people see me before they see me. I know what I can do to make someone see me or not see me. I know what I can do to encourage or discourage someone from approaching. And at the same time, once someone's approaching, I know a system to both give them what they want and not make it entirely intrusive.
What is it? So like you'll take the picture for them, or say let's get a quick pic or something?
100%. Like somebody came up to me at a bar just last night and they were like, my whole life people tell me that I look like you. And I'm like, I'm so sorry for you. I've had several people relate this exact experience, and I can only apologize.
Great. Strong connected bit right away.
And he said, well, this, that, and the other. And then I said, hey, you got a camera? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, well, let's get it, man. Let's get it. And I got a picture of us, and I was like, great to meet you, man.
Yeah, good.
And that was the best thing that I learned, actually. Jonathan Frakes from Next Generation. I met him when I was like 17 or 18 years old. And it was the first celebrity who shut it down on his own terms. And I witnessed it and took note of it. And I was like, that's a really good thing to remember. Like, I came up to him and I was just like, hey, man, I just wanted to meet you. And he was like, oh, great to meet you. And I was like, I'm Seth, I'm this, and I really enjoy you as this. He was like, oh, that's wonderful. You're an actor, and that's great. And well, good luck to you, man. It was great to meet you.
Yeah.
And he finalized this, and I was like, it was great to meet you too. And then I walked away. I was like, oh, thanks, man. You put an end to this so that I didn't drag it out.
Another Sullivan story. We were at someone's home, and he was a guest there. He doesn't know everyone. He came with me. He doesn't know everybody there. And he got caught in a conversation with somebody for 2 hours. I thought he was having the best time. He's talking to this guy for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then later he comes up and says, I couldn't get out of that conversation.
Yeah.
And I said to him, just end. Like, I'll say, all right, man, I want to walk around now.
Yeah, but
Some people, it's
that
finalizing it, like what you're saying, is a skill set.
Like turning something from a positive experience into a negative experience.
You don't say you're boring me goodbye. You could be like, dude, this was a great talk. I want to talk to some other people too. Maybe I'll see you in a little bit.
I got the only time somebody's done that in a way that made me like them. I got to meet Johnny Depp while he was still on Jump Street.
Cool.
At a Make-A-Wish
of course.
gathering. And so it was all of these at-risk kids and all these kids with terminal diseases. And there were all of these actors from the 80s there. I was so excited to meet him because he was one of my favorite actors at the time. I loved Jump Street. And I had also watched the way that he had navigated. I grew up in a time of teen stars and all of the pop magazines and, each of the pop bands and like fanaticism from girls. And Johnny was the guy in the very first season of Jump Street. He did the pictures in the magazines, but he quickly eschewed that entire process and was not interested in being seen as a heartthrob. He started growing his hair. He started making himself almost aggressively unattractive as any way that he could.
No, he didn't. But yeah, I know what you mean.
But he sought out movies like Cry Baby. Yeah. He sought out movies like Edward Scissorhands. He set out to do things that were artistically challenging rather than just playing beautiful boys in different movies. So I really looked at him in almost an idol fashion. Like he was someone I greatly admired and was impressed by. And so when I saw him at this party, I just wanted to meet him. And I was like, hey man, I just wanted to meet you. And I tried to be real cool. Like, I think I opened up with like, oh, what's it like to work with Dustin Nguyen? Like, and he came at me so sincere. He was like, oh, Dusty's the greatest scene partner you could have, man. He's so well prepared and really available to you. And I quickly, all of my irony dropped. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That must be great. We talked for just a couple minutes. He was like, well, what are you working on? Are you trying this and that? Very curious. And then it could have only been a minute, but he said, hey man, I want to talk to you, but also I really want to talk to all these kids. So great to meet you. And I was like, yeah, that's what we're here for. We're not here to socialize with each other. We're here for these kids. Yeah, thanks for keeping me on course. And then
I love the stuff you clock.
Well, then before the end of the night, like I saw him walking towards the door and we're only about 10 foot apart, but he looks back across the room and he sees me, walks back over to me and says, hey, Seth, it was great to meet you, man. Best of luck. And I was like, thank you. Like, it meant everything that he both remembered my name, that he took the time to say goodbye, that he said good luck. Like, everything about that, I was like, I want to be like you. I want to be like you. I want to be that self-aware. I want to be that conscious. I want to be that supportive. I want to be that real. You know what I mean?
On the social media front, I want to bring something up to you. On Instagram, Family Guy follows 22 people. Cast, producers, whoever else, and they follow me.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know how that happened. I don't know why that happened.
They must think you're funny. They must like your tweets.
They must.
I don't know who
Instagram.
runs that.
I don't either.
I don't know who runs the Family Guy Instagram.
But I saw that, and it blew my mind. Family Guy is, I mean, you know what it is. I mean, you live it. So yeah, if you don't know who runs that, I was wondering if you know, like, yeah, they follow people that, are misunderstood, who have a lot of potential. I'm like, oh, great, thanks.
I'm sure it's up to interpretation.
But That's my most exciting follow. I think
That's a
there's
great
something
compliment.
nice about only following in the double digits, less
Yeah.
than 100, and I'm on there. So thank you, Family Guy. If you're listening and you're a fan, thank you, Family Guy Instagram.
I'm sure they're watching all of my podcasts. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Also, I remember you when you first. There's a line in there where you say, blasted her face like a Jackson Pollock.
Yes.
I remember I Googled Jackson Pollock then.
Oh, you did?
I'd heard of him. I didn't know.
One of my proudest achievements was improvising that line. And even, I'll give you context of the story because it was so funny. We had shot all down in the basement or in that club, wherever it was. And they had done all of Kevin and the other side's coverage. And they were turning around into my close-up. And because of the schedule, everybody had to leave to rehearse a different scene in a different place. So Kevin, Jerry, like none of those guys were there. I was essentially performing to a camera and a piece of tape. And improvising that line was one of my favorite things because it was both horribly crude, but also pseudo-intellectual. And I felt like that was like a hilarious dichotomy for a villain to have, like well-cultured, but also just gross.
Sure.
I thought that was really funny.
It was a good line.
Thanks, man.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up, but I do want to ask a couple quick Family Guy
Sure.
questions.
Yeah.
So you're in what was it, 99? It was right before, right? This is like 20 years now, right?
Yes, we premiered in, it had to be the end of 98. It couldn't have even been, it wasn't 99
But
yet.
you took a couple years off though.
We were 3 years off the air.
So you're 17 seasons now?
We are in I think it is. It's 17 seasons.
That's one of the longest running shows of all time.
Behind the Simpsons.
Yeah, that's I think 30 this year.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is fucking amazing too.
I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, they still innovate, which is impressive.
Simpsons and Fresh Prince are what made, I think, most of what my subconscious personality and instincts are from those two shows.
Yeah.
And as much as The Simpsons is what taught me what joke structure is, and I appreciate and I love, I put on Family Guy. I don't, when The Simpsons is on, I'll watch it. I seek out Family Guy,
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's the jokes per minute are insane to
Yeah.
where when you guys miss, it literally doesn't. It doesn't matter. 30 Rock has something similar to where there's just so many hard jokes that when
Yeah.
there's a miss, it's like I don't care. Let's keep watching. It's like a strike, but they're not out.
Yeah.
Being part of that show and being part of that show from the beginning, and also being someone who is a writer, producer, specifically in the animation side, how much do you get to create for because you play a fair amount of voices, including one of the main family members.
Well, Chris is the thing that I'm always doing, and then I have one other character, this character Neil Goldman, who shows up from time to time.
I've seen you as more than Neil Goldman, haven't I?
I do a lot of like peripheral things.
Yes.
If there's like a guy in the hallway or this gopher or whatever, like I'll get to do those because under SAG you can do 3 voices under the same contract. And so they don't
Per
have to pay you.
episode.
Yeah, so they'll
Right.
fill it out so all the voices don't sound the same, and they'll give me like one line here or
Sure.
one line there. But Chris is the thing that I get to really focus on, which is awesome. I've never had a character in my career that I've gotten to evolve over time or gotten to know so well to the point where I feel like I understand how he would respond or how he would react to things.
Do you watch the show? I don't know if you could answer that.
Yeah, the best
honestly.
thing about Family Guy is I don't have to read the scripts in advance. It isn't something that you memorize. And aside from knowing the immediate context of any line,
Is that how all animation is, or Family Guy?
it really depends. Like all different shows have different processes. There's plenty of shows that record as a radio play with every cast member there, but it's not the most efficient thing. And especially at this point, our entire cast has wildly different schedules. It's very difficult to get everybody together for a table read, let alone to be in a booth for 6 hours.
Are there no table
together.
reads for the show?
There's table reads every episode, but they don't invite the cast unless it's a specific thing where the table read is really for the writers to hear the jokes out loud,
Right.
to hear how anything plays in a rhythm, whether dialogue plays or a joke plays. And so if there's something that's Chris specific or a Chris heavy story, they'll ask me to come in because sometimes my performance will inform whether a joke will or not play. And so
So sometimes some of the cast is there and other ones aren't.
Yeah. As a result, I don't have to read the scripts in advance. And so I'll come in and only do my dialogue, which you know, you just forget the second that you walk out. And so then I get to watch the show like a fan and not remember having even fucking recorded that, or especially not know what the story is going to be. So I get to watch the show like a fan.
All right, 2 more things. I'll save the last for last. First is we have that cube.
Yeah.
Show us your little. Show us. You have a trick.
Well, it's funny because I was alive when the Rubik's Cube was first released, and so people were not in speed competitions, and there hadn't been 40 years of development in techniques and practices. So I only learned the most basic of patterns, which is this little X, this little thing. That's the only thing that I know how to solve.
It's not bad.
It's not bad. It looks complicated.
I got into cubing on Futile and Super Gesture. David, when we all went to his house for right before we shot, he had a cube, that cube in particular, and solved it super fast.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn it. I have on my board right over here directors I want to work with. It's been up there since I moved here. It's 2 names. It's David Wayne and Edgar Wright.
Oh, yeah.
And the first movie I did was this David Wayne movie.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
And I had
Have you met Edgar?
Wait,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt the cube story.
Yeah, I have met it. So here's something funny. With Edgar Wright, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
And I had this thing, Edgar Wright Mondays. And for 2 years, I would do Edgar Wright Monday with a different emoticon for each thing. It was just that. And after X amount of time, he started writing back to me and was acknowledging it. And it culminated to where his movie came out, Baby Driver came out on a Wednesday, or the screening I went to, something of Baby Driver was out on a Wednesday. And I thought, well, here's where it ends. So I stopped doing it. But since then, he followed me and blah, blah, blah. And we DM'd for a little bit. And he said, we've met before, right? And I said, when? I'm the guy, I'm the fan here. What are you talking about? And apparently we shared a cab at Just for Laughs Montreal from the hotel or wherever to the airport. And I didn't know what he looked like, I guess, or I mean, there's no way I'm not remembering that.
Well, he's an unassuming character.
I mean, if I met him during that moment when for whatever reason. He's specific. You know Edgar Wright if you see him.
Now you do. If you've spent any time looking at him, but you wouldn't presume that this, handsome, super casual, cool guy is that same filmmaker. You just wouldn't do it.
Right. And at the time I knew his work, and I guess not what he looked like. But when he said that, there was 20% I'm the man. Like, one, because the status where he is and I am, he remembers something. And 2, like, this guy who's on my bulletin board, it's like, hey, man, we know each other.
Yeah.
And then 80% was, I'm doing Edgar Wright Wednesdays for like 8 months. And we shared a guy, I didn't even know it, But as far as the cube is concerned, I've always... In college, I saw these people learning the algorithms for the cube, and that was the first time I realized, it's not just intuition. There are rules to this
math,
madness. And I just clocked that. I never thought much of it. I'll learn that one day, And then when David did, I'm like, okay, I got to learn how to do it. And so I got the cube, and I went home, and that day on YouTube, I learned how to do it. It was in around the 5 to 7 minute range, but I could do it from memory. I learned them. And that was cool. David, how fast could you do it? And he's doing it in under a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I got to learn how to do this. So on set, he would show me tricks, and I asked it. Writing and directing is the goal for me, and he's one of the kings. He's on my board. May I watch and shadow? And he let me stay. And while staying, we had all this downtime, and we bonded over this cube. And I'm good at the cube now, and I got good at it. Like some people pick up golf so they can network, I accidentally picked up the cube, and it made me become friends with this guy who's he just did this podcast. And on the podcast, non-ironically, I'm having him sign my DVDs and my Blu-rays. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing here? This is amazing. So anyway, that's my cube story.
Yeah, he was on my list too, man. Hugely inspirational, like all the things that he made. It's just like innovative from a comedy standpoint. All the performers that he collected to work with, and the types of things that he made. I've been hugely influenced by him. I was thrilled to get that opportunity.
Yeah, I remember you saying, you brought this up on the podcast, but I remember you saying that we're around all these amazing people, and you come up to me. You came up to me, and also, obviously, you don't know who I am, and we all know who everybody else is. And you're like, is it fucking cool to be around these people? And I'm thinking, like, one of them is saying that, yeah. Why are you, that you feel that way is very cool.
I think that goes back to my first day of first grade, where I was in a brand new school and terrified, and everybody seemed to know each other, seemed to know where they were going. They knew where the lunchroom was. They knew what the protocol was for ordering food. And I felt so overwhelmed and scared. And I had somebody, I don't even remember if we were in the same class. They were like, first day? And I was like, and they go, I'll show you. And they got me in the lunch line, showed me how to order. And they were like, you sit wherever you want. And I'll never forget that. And so when I started going to summer camp, I took it upon myself to be that. And when I saw somebody who didn't know what they were doing, I was like, nobody knows what they're doing. We'll figure it out together.
That's a pattern of you seeing people that make you feel a certain way that you want to become, like you said, with the exits and with Depp and with...
You only deal with your own example, right?
My first work was as a series regular on a network television show. I didn't first do guest stars and co-stars. So I didn't experience doing guest star stuff until years after being a regular on something.
Right.
And one of my experiences was doing the Mike Tyson's Murder Mystery Group. Hugh, Rachel, and Larry. They had the show Nobodies for a few years, and I was on a few episodes of that. And that was the first I clocked when they all in the makeup trailer. They came up to me because it's their home. They're welcoming me, and which I never was conscious of. I never thought about really. And hey man, how you doing? And thanks for doing the show. And I'm thinking like, oh, thanks for having me here, you know. But that was when I clocked. I'm like, oh, you have to do that.
It's to the betterment of the production to make everyone feel confident enough and comfortable enough to give you their work.
Yeah, and to allow me to feel comfortable enough to be collaborative or to at least make choices because they know these people are welcoming of me.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to talk about?
I'm excited for people to see this movie.
Changeland, June 7th. Is it a nationwide release? How does this work? How do people find out where to see it?
It's 10 cities across the U.S., and they're still determining those, but it'll be same day and date on iTunes and across national cable platforms. So if you have Cox or Spectrum or Comcast, it'll be on demand under Still in Theater.
And it's a cool way to see you do something that personally I haven't seen from you.
Oh, thanks.
It's very sincere. It's very beautiful. The story and just watching it, I mean, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous piece.
Thanks,
so
man.
if you like titty and fart jokes, you got to check this movie out.
Yeah, full of the biggest boobs, the wettest farts.
BBWFs. Seth, thank you so much.
Thanks,
and for those of you who are listening in on iTunes, check out the YouTube version. And those of you who are watching on YouTube, you heard it. So, okay.
Okay.
All right. Hey, now that the audio's off and everything's done.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, tell me session. As a guy like you, tell me about all the pussy that you must be taking down.
Well, I've been married for 9 years now, so it's really just the one.
And you always know how to answer. I was testing you. The cameras were on, actually.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
Oh my
He's a
gosh,
good
you
guy.
almost caught me, Rick.
Scoop